your situation with having golden handcuffs and the world seeming like it's all working out for you, but inside you're hurting. So could you just expand on that and how this went down? Because I think it's a really important story and I can't wait for you to share it.
Yeah, and I'll preface by saying I'm still like, I don't know if I will call it real depression, and you know, that's probably a whole 2 hour conversation with someone who actually knows what they're talking about. So what I would say is, for me, it was like really feeling down. Whether that was actual full depression or not, I don't know, but either way, I was like really down. And I think it was so much that I was just doing stuff to distract myself day to day. I was going through the motions. I was really unhealthy. I was eating terrible food, like going out all the time, you know, just doing stuff that was the lowest level of human, you know, like stimulating myself, but not actually having anything nutritious, like the way you say this podcast is nutrition for the brain. I was really missing that. And I guess, so one was just being aware of that. And again, for me, I was kind of comparing it to what I saw around me. So, you know, some of my family members and some of my close friends have had real deep depression, whereas I've seen the impact of it. So I don't want to compare myself in a negative way and say like, oh, look at me when I was actually functioning okay. But regardless, I shouldn't also minimize it, because I was in a place where I wasn't feeling great. And I think a lot of people have this moment where from the outside, everything looks great. And from the inside, you're just kind of like, what the hell am I doing here? And you're having these, you're questioning yourself. And I'm saying, why am I in New York right now, away from my family? Like, was it worth it? Why am I doing X, Y, Z? And, you know, I think that is a difficult thing that a lot of people go through. And the biggest thing for me was always like the work part was always on my head, because I had that entrepreneurial stint as a kid. I just assumed I would always go back to doing that. And I just didn't feel like I had a real tangible path or knew where to go. And that's where the podcast kind of started to give me the room to explore areas outside of my comfort zone and my day to day. So yeah, I kind of went through that process, those 10, 15 questions I mentioned, and wrote them out. And by the end, one of the last questions is something like, what can I do today that's going to help me, you know, share the things that I've written about above? Like, what are my, because you're essentially auditing what you're good at and what you care about. And then you're trying to come up with something that you can start today, whether that's a journal for yourself or a podcast or whatever, that is going to move you in that right direction. And that really made a big difference. And then the podcast was game changer, because in 2015 I just said, okay, I'm going to start interviewing people that I want to get to know and change, you know, the 5 people around me, you know, like that old phrase, you are as good as the 5 people around you. Don't get me wrong, the people around me were great and like loving friends and great people, but they weren't necessarily like pushing me to the next level. So I needed to do something to get out of that.
And the podcast was your avenue to get yourself out into figuring out, okay, these are the people who are going to inspire me. These are the people who are going to bring me up. So
Completely.
So I love also that question, that what can you do today? Because I think sometimes when you're feeling down and you don't know what to do, you can get overwhelmed and you're looking at a million different things and you're like, why am I not here? Why am I not doing this? But if you really just stop and think about it, what's the one thing you can do today? That's such a helpful question, because it really micros down everything. So you start the podcast and you just, are you then excited about the mission? You're excited about every day. You're excited about what's going. Talk to me through like the beginning stages of that.
Yeah, that's a great way to, you know, I haven't really thought that much about this, but just as you've asked it, I kind of had a flashback of 2-3 moments, and it kind of represents the different stages of my own last like 5 years. And the podcast is the only constant, pretty much, like work-wise anyway, that I've just kept going on the side. And now it's become a big part of my full-time as well. But at the start, it was just a small experiment, right? It was a I love the way Tim Ferriss had talked about it, which was, you know, make it easy for yourself, record 5 or 10 up front, see if you like it. And that helped me a lot because it made it feel like a tangible thing I could do. And it gave me the out to say, after 5 or 10, if I don't like it, I can just stop doing it. But what I found was, as soon as I started doing it, I was like, wow, this is incredible. And I felt like I was naturally pretty good at it. Like, I won't say I'm the best interviewer in the world, but I think I love having conversations. So I would do this for free anyway. In fact, I was doing it for free in my own life. So I said, well, if I was just recording this and sharing it, it would make a big difference. But I started to realize that this will give me the avenue to go and meet people and ask for a meeting that I otherwise wouldn't get. So the same way you went and spent time and had an interview with Gary Vee recently, like that was the same for me. Like I had Gary on the show, and like I got to meet him in person, and I'd been following him for 10 years like you had. And that was, you know, a life experience I wouldn't have had otherwise. And that makes it worthwhile on its own. And then so many things come out of those relationships too, right? So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question there, but that's kind of how I thought about it.